What's part of a trend doesn't last. Only that which the artist has created from the heart will remain. That which comes from the heart, whether that's in painting, in music or in literature, has lasting value. The beauty, the goodness, nature, the love that goes into paintings, into music or into literature. These are things that unify us. They make us feel like all people are connected and that we all belong together. I'm a painter and my work brings me great joy. I attended the State Vocational School in Innsbruck, as well as the Academy in Vienna. After my studies, I had a studio in Vienna. I also went on many trips abroad, and I worked a lot all over the world. I also won some nice prizes, both Austrian and international ones. I took part in many competitions with architects for mural paintings in schools, kindergartens and hospitals. I've won several competition prizes, and working is a complete joy for me. I have also had many exhibitions, at home as well as abroad, like in Canada and America. I also went to Morocco, to Cairo in Egypt, Italy, France. I've had exhibitions all over the world, and I've also had many in Austria, and I really enjoy my work.
Elisabeth Bauerstein-Wildbolz has been an esteemed painter since the 1950s. Born in Innsbruck in 1933, Elisabeth trained in Vienna at the Academy of Applied Arts and the Academy of Fine Arts. By 1954, Bauerstein was already distinguished in New York with the first prize in the Fuller Company's international competition. This was followed by the Theodor Korner Prize for the Advancement of Science and Art in Vienna, 1959. In 1966, she won the prize of the regional capital city of Innsbruck for artistic creation. In 1986, the title of Professor was bestowed upon her. The theme of her work is people and their surroundings, landscapes, undisturbed nature and its microcosms. The Austrian painter and graphic designer Professor Dr. Rudolf Hölzner says, "Thus pictures come about whose new aesthetic helps bridge the gap between civilization and nature and take on a highly therapeutic value for us people."
Since I was a child, I always wanted to be a painter. And I'm very happy that I succeeded in getting my parents to support me with this. It really is a profession that makes me very, very happy. I simply have the desire to bring nature, everything that is in nature, into my paintings. When I received commissions for prize-winning work in schools, I brought many natural elements into these large paintings, so that the children would learn to love and value these microcosms, the tiny plants and the moss on the stones. So when they go on a field trip, they won't drop things onto the beautiful stones or onto the beautiful forest moss. Instead, they can see that these are plants, and when they observe them closely, they can see how wonderful they are, and that every little moss blossom is its own beauty. That way they learn to have a lot of love for nature and to be grateful for it, and that's so wonderful. I have also made a lot of paintings for doctors who are particularly lovely customers because they get so much joy from these paintings. And the paintings also bring joy to the patients in the waiting rooms. It's so beautiful, they say. The patients become a lot calmer because the pictures are so positive. And that is exactly my strong heartfelt desire, to therapeutically build people up through my paintings. The same thing happens in clinics, therapeutic institutions and rehabs, where many of my paintings are displayed. And I've made some big murals there as well. Time and again I hear that they build people up and bring them a lot of joy. And this is so important. As the Viennese psychologist and psychiatrist Professor Dr. Ringel says, harmony is health and disharmony is illness. And that's so true. When you observe your own body and notice how you're feeling, you can immediately sense when you see or hear something, whether it's going to build you up or weigh you down. It's just wonderful to be able to help lift people up in that way, whether it's through art, music or literature.
Und es ist so wunderbar, nachdem
And it's so wonderful, after so much negativity here on earth, both now and in the past, to be able to oppose that with positivity.
Positives entgegensetzt. Und das Positive ist viel stärker.
The positive is a lot stronger than the negative, and people are inherently far more strongly attracted to the good when you show it to them. They often don't even know how important the positive is, and how anything else doesn't feel all that good. In some of my exhibitions, visitors have said, "Finally some joyful pictures. These build me up." It's so common to see unpleasant and negative images.
Tote Pferde und Kriegsszenen.
Like of dead horses and war scenes and things like that. Paintings of fighting and revolution and this and that. So it's really nice when you see nature opposing all that. A beautiful blossom or a beautiful landscape, a beautiful light, sunshine that reflects everywhere. That's what brings joy.
Wenn man das Negative ständig zeigt.
When you continually show the negative and keep bringing it up, people become inflamed by it. They become aggressive and unconsciously cause discord and unkindness.
Den Unfrieden stiften und die Lieblosigkeit. Während dem guten Sinn kommt die Liebe.
When they see the good, however, love and unity arise. And that's so lovely, because it's so good for everyone. And it's simply important for the whole world. Because we are all connected to one another and to nature. It's all one, and everything is somehow divine, really. And that's ultimately the point of it all, that mankind learns to live in the divine again, in the good, and not play around with the negative and then become miserable.
Und ich habe etliche Kollegen, die in Wien gehabt, die so unglücklich waren.
I had several colleagues in Vienna who were very unhappy. One of them even killed himself. Another colleague then said, "That was a great accomplishment. It's wonderful that he had the courage to do that." I said, "That's crazy. Things like this happen because destructive influences simply push people into them, unconsciously. They don't even notice it. There is some kind of negative spirit behind this that influences people in this way." This is something I also observe a lot from an artistic point of view. I have a lot of training and experience as a painter, and I can see that there is much more artistic power in positive paintings than there is in negative ones, and that there are far more beautiful compositions. There are negative paintings that are skillfully done, yet they somehow still have evil in them.
In sich haben. Und die meisten Negativen sind aber total.
Most negative images, however, are completely unskillful. There is an unpleasantness to them. And well, that's when I think, what a shame that people don't realize this. The academies also encourage this these days. It wasn't like that before. They believe that it's commercially better to market something like that because it's the current trend. And that's why it's so important that you always only take in the good. The human being is very impressionable when he has not yet recognized himself and does not yet know that he's meant to be inherently happy and have joy. The other thing is a fashion trend in the evil sense, one can surely say. This then leads to suicide and all sorts of things, like alcohol consumption and using drugs. And people can't help it because it's simply part of the current trend. That's why one must lead them out of there and show them how beautiful life can be when you get into the positive, how wonderful it is, how happy you can be, and how much joy you can pass on to others. And therefore, it is my desire to do a lot of good through my paintings. It's such a joy.
Wenn ich malen will oder arbeiten, ich habe sehr gern.
When I paint or work, I love listening to some good music. I love Mozart, for example, or Boccherini. It depends on what I'm working on. Such music is wonderful. It puts me in the mood and connects me to the beauty and the good. But when the beautiful concertos are over and suddenly some techno music comes on, that's so unpleasant that I can't work anymore. It just puts me in an edgy mood, a restlessness. I also observed this once when my husband and I were on an alpine meadow, quite high up in the mountains. They had a big disco there that was open from morning till night, with spotlights and extremely irritating flashing lights, in blue, green, red, and so on, and with techno music coming out of loudspeakers. My husband and I were saying, not in this beautiful nature. We couldn't find any peace there, and going hiking there was so unpleasant. It's just a shame for nature, and it's so important that people recognize that. All the animals that live there, the birds, the bramblings, everything becomes agitated. It's the stillness that's so beautiful about nature, and it's so important that we can enjoy it and connect with the good. That's why it's so nice when you bring the good and encourage the good again and again. A lot of good for everyone. That's so important. Everything that's in music, literature, painting, etc. creates connections, and every artist who consciously works with the good strives to make these connections. And the people that take in the good through his work then also feel connected, not only to the artist but also to one another. And that's the important thing. That's particularly beautiful, when there is a vibration that brings unity. Chaos and negativity, however, are destructive. They destroy and they divert and divide us from one another.
In 1993, a severe calamity befell Elisabeth Bauerstein-Wildbolz. Her life started to falter, and her artistic work seemed to come to an abrupt end.
Ich war im Atelier, habe begonnen weitergemalt wie immer.
I was in my studio and I was painting as usual, when suddenly massive swellings appeared all over my body, on my face and everywhere, as if I were in a swarm of bees or wasps. I thought, oh dear, what is this strange thing? And I went to my GP. My doctor said that it was a severe allergy and he gave me injections. However, nothing changed. So I went to an allergy doctor. She did a lot of tests and then she said, the allergy is really severe. You will have it your whole life. You'll never get rid of it. It's quite horrendous, as well as dangerous because of the risk of suffocation. My mouth was completely lopsided and my eye was swollen. And the doctor said, if it goes any lower, you will suffocate, and you must always carry cortisone with you. And you must keep a distance from everything, and avoid everything. This was very, very difficult for me. I love being around people. I love going to bakeries, smelling flowers, traveling abroad to go to exhibitions, or to paint, and I love traveling by train. You'll have to be really careful with all these things everywhere you go, the doctor said. If someone on the train is eating a bread roll, you have to be careful. This was because there were other allergies as well, as we found out later. No weed, no milk, no floral scents, no colors. I wasn't allowed to wear any colorful clothing anymore. Twice a week I went to the doctor with a whole bag full of things and she tested all of them. She kept telling me, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't do that either. And always carry cortisone with you, then nothing bad will happen. That was terrible for me, as if a black curtain had come down and my life was over, and I wasn't allowed to paint anymore. However, I still went to my studio and wanted to force it. I thought, that's impossible. I'll do it anyway. I want to paint. So I sat down and I started painting. But after only 10 minutes, the allergic reaction was already everywhere, and I thought, oh dear. But then I tried it again. The doctor said, stop it. It will only get worse if you keep doing that. All right. So I stopped doing it. And it was quite terrible. I couldn't do anything. When my husband ate a bread roll or something, like strawberries, I couldn't go into the kitchen, and it had to be aired out. You can't use cleaning products anymore, the doctor said. If you have someone who cleans, you must air out the place before you go in. Otherwise, you won't be able to touch anything. It's dangerous everywhere. And that's what it was like for me, unfortunately. I was very sad, and I cried a lot. Once when my husband's accountant came, and he was wearing cologne, I couldn't even bring him coffee. When we invited someone, an allergic reaction would suddenly start, and my husband had to see the guests alone. I said, I can't show myself like this. I look horrible, completely swollen. And then I always began to tremble, because it was so dangerous, and I thought, hopefully nothing is swelling up inside. It's a horrible feeling. I was very, very depressed. Then one day I found a short article in the Austrian magazine called The Whole Week. It said that a doctor from Hamburg had seen astonishing success with patients through the taking in of this spiritual healing power or energy. It was free, and it was also possible to give them a call. There was a telephone number of the journalist from Linz. I called her and she wasn't home, but her mother answered the phone and she said, yes, it sounds like this would be something for you. And I thought, yes, that sounds good. She gave me the telephone number of the community in Innsbruck, and I said to my husband, let's go there. This is my last hope. And then we went there. We went inside a room, and there were friendly, kind people and a picture of a man at the front who we didn't know. We sat down and the introduction began. 2 other people were there as well. We both felt nothing and were very skeptical and thought, God knows what this is. You need to be careful what you get yourself into. We stayed though, and in the community hour, the community leader talked about Bruno Gröning and about his teaching and his words. On the way home, I said to my husband, I have a feeling there really is clarity there. There is truth and there is love. Let's keep going there and see what happens. Something good can happen there. At first we didn't want to go to the community hours every 3 weeks. We both are independent people. I'm an independent artist and I don't want to be tied down in any way. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Besides that, I had the feeling that when Bruno Gröning says, whoever follows has success, it means that you should really go there. And so we started going there every 3 weeks. What was interesting was that I did Einstellen the whole week, and I felt absolutely no energy, nothing. But then on the Saturday before Pentecost, when I dutifully sat down again and did Einstellen, I suddenly had a feeling, a very wonderful feeling. It came from my head and went all the way down my back. I felt a warmth, as if a heat lamp was behind me, but much more pleasant. And I thought, interesting, something is happening there. And that warmth came with such a good feeling. It was something very strengthening. Which gave me the feeling that I could feel happy again. Finally, a feeling of joy. And I thought, there is some truth to this. For half a year we went to all the community hours. And then what happened was, I had planned a big exhibition in Switzerland. One that was always sold out some years in advance. I didn't want to say anything to the gallery owner, nor to the art dealer, because then I'd be out of business. And I thought, what do I do now? I don't have enough paintings. I asked Bruno Gröning what I should do. A couple of days later, in the morning, I had a feeling. as if I was hearing the words inside me. You can paint now. I went down to the studio and began to work with all the colors I wasn't allowed to use. The doors and windows were closed because it was cold outside. It was the beginning of November, and because of this, I had paint fumes all around me. Sometimes I also mixed the colors myself, all of them which weren't allowed. And so I was painting. I was working very excitedly. I thought that a reaction could still come, Regelungen perhaps. But it didn't have to be that way. In any case, I could paint. At night I thought about it again. Nothing had happened. The next day I continued the work, and again nothing happened. And nothing happened the next day either. No reaction. And on the third day it was the same again. I knew from my Viennese specialist that when nothing happens within 36 hours, then you don't have any allergy to whatever you were in contact with. After 36 hours in the morning, I said to my husband, I think I've been healed. I don't feel it anymore. I was very, very happy and continued the work. In spring we went to Switzerland with all the paintings, and I did the exhibition there. I also did a photo shoot, and it all went very well. We have been in a circle of friends for 12.5 years now, and I've never had any allergy flare-up ever again. I can now do everything again that I wasn't allowed to do before. And it's so wonderful. The exhibition in Switzerland was very lovely. It was in a big room with many, many paintings. And this painting here was also there. It was the first painting that I painted after my healing. These colors were completely forbidden. My favorite colors, yellow, orange and red. I'm so happy that I can use these colors again. It's wonderful. It's a special painting, the healing painting. I really like it. My husband and I are very grateful that I received this healing and that we found a Bruno Gröning circle of friends. It was a rescue from the worst distress, as well as a rebirth into life. What I also need to say is that I found my way back to God. I had always been searching and searching. As a child and as a young girl, I was very religious. But later I had the feeling that I didn't feel or notice much, even though I prayed a lot. I had begun to pray again when I got the allergy, but it didn't help. And because of that, I was a little disconnected. Although I had always searched for the good and the divine, I couldn't find it anywhere. And here I found it. And for this, I'm so grateful.
So dankbar. Ich kann gar nicht sagen wie.